It is more than 60 feet high and making some people who live and work nearby sick to their stomach.
We are talking about a giant trash pile in the Low Country. News 3's Andrew Davis went out to the site today to find out more.
He is joining us now live from the Low Country newsroom with our top story.
Nasty, disgusting, foul, awful, sickening. Those are the best words that businesses and homeowners on Shinger Avenue can come up with when you mention the trash pile right next door. They want something done about it and hope health officials are listening.
It's pretty foul. I don't know what it is, but I don't like it.
They're talking about the 60-foot plus high trash pile in Ridgeland right next door to their business. It's a heap that took firefighters 31 hours to put out when it was on fire back in 2015. That fire, businesses say, is still smoldering underneath.
But every morning there's smoke coming out of it, and it's a foul smell. Pretty thick. It's pretty thick.
We kind of want to get in and get out
quick.
Yeah,
we get our stuff and get out of here.
The pile, which is on the Able Contracting property, continues to grow, according to folks around here. That's despite a sign on the property which promises, quote, 85% of this material is recycled and kept out of a landfill. That material is supposed to be recyclable construction debris. I did watch a truck full of logs go into the site on Tuesday, but pictures also show garbage trucks going in and out regularly.
It's disgusting. I mean, it ain't garbage, but it's construction garbage. There ain't no telling what's in that stuff. Like I said, it'll gag you.
At least one business I talked to say they've had to allow someone to work from home because of the physical effects caused by that smell. They're also worried about the environmental effect from the thousands of gallons of water that Able Contracting is using to stop any more fires. This is a look at a nearby retaining pond where the brown isn't land, it's water. Neighbors say they wouldn't mind a true recycling plant. They just don't want a foul-smelling 60-foot tall health hazard hovering over them.
What would that mean if you saw that pile go down or the smell go down?
I'd love it.
It would be great. It really would. I think everybody would love it around here, actually.
Now, the South Carolina Department of Health sent a letter on July 3rd to the site's owner to stop taking in more trash, but Able Contracting has gotten a stay on that order and apparently plans to take it to court. Now, I did meet a DHEC agent at the site today. They said they were there to investigate any stormwater implications, and we will get that report when it's available. I tried to talk to anyone from Able Construction today, but they said simply they didn't have any comment on the pile or their neighbors' complaints. Andrew Davis, WSAV News 3. We told you yesterday about the potential hazards of fire for that giant trash pile here in Ridgeland. You can see this morning that firefighters from Jasper County are out and they're putting water on hot spots and smoke that was coming from the pile. Pumping water on that pile for more than an hour Wednesday morning. Just hours before, business owners took these videos of the smoke in the area. The smell, they say, was unbearable, worse than it's been in months. The South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control says their air quality meter on site is not above the allowable health-based standards. Another day and more hot spots at the giant 65-foot debris pile behind me here in Ridgeland. Neighbors and businesses are still concerned, and now the Department of Health and Environmental Control have called in the EPA to help. Jasper County Fire now has a truck stationed at the site, water lines down and ready for the next time firefighters have to come in. And DHEC has distributed flyers to businesses and homes in the area about environmental smoke. They tell folks to protect themselves by not spending much time outside of their home and close their windows and doors to avoid breathing the air. DHEC calls the entire situation complex. That's why they're waiting for the EPA's soil and water samples to come back before determining what path, if any, to move forward. They will continue monitoring the air quality in this area for neighbors and businesses. If you'd like to see that for yourself, we have a link on our website, wsav.com/giant trash pile.
Environmental officials have issued an emergency order demanding the business stop operations and remove what some say is a smelly eyesore.
News 3's Andrew Davis is in Ridgeland with tonight's top story.
The giant trash pile in Jasper County has been declared an imminent and substantial danger to the people who live nearby. That's the official word from DHEC, and now they're cracking down on the owners and telling him what he needs to do about it.
It's about time. We've been waiting a long time for our voices to be heard.
Neighbors and businesses thankful that finally something's being done about the smelly, smoking, giant debris pile they have next door.
It got through the cracks somehow or another, but it got too big, and I think it should have been monitored a lot closer.
DHEC did monitor the air quality this past week, which found on 4 different days alone levels of fine particulate matter registered as high as 16 times the EPA safe standards. That's part of the reason why the agency issued an emergency order late yesterday. It calls the smoke and the fire coming from the pile an emergency, requiring immediate action to protect public health. DHEC issued an order that Able Contracting immediately cease operations at the site and monitor the smoke and fire 24 hours a day. Chandler Lloyd, Able Contracting's owner, has 72 hours to create and begin implementing a plan to limit the smoke and for the complete extinguishment of that fire. Folks in the area have been dealing with this smell and potentially dangerous chemicals for 5 years or more. They're thankful a plan is now in place, but they still wonder why it took this long for something to be done.
I'm just going to have to cross my fingers and hope that they do. I don't know. It's going to take a long time to move that pile over there. I know that. And hopefully it's not going to affect my business.
An eventful weekend here at that giant debris pile in Ridgeland. First on Friday, the owner of Able Contracting, who owns this site, Chandler Lloyd, filed legal paperwork saying he does not have the money to hire somebody to knock down this pile and potentially put out any fires that are inside. Then on Saturday, Jasper County filed a voluntary evacuation for all the neighbors in this area. They say this has been a long time coming.
He's taken our lives, all of ours, not just mine. And my children's, my family, all these families. He's done it. Him, and he needs to pay.
Karina Curiel is emotional as she talks about the pile next to her home and the man who owns it.
Nobody can't do something to somebody like this and not pay for it. Yeah. This is people's lives.
Firefighters are going out to the site 1 to 2 times a day and putting water only on visible fire. Jasper County working on a long-term solution to mitigate that blaze inside the pile, but pumping thousands of gallons of water on it is not the solution, according to the chief.
They burn very deep. They burn in mostly locations that you can't access. So for us to continually apply water to the smoke, it doesn't mean that we're going to get to the fire, because the smoke may come up 15, 20, 30 feet away from where the fire is.
Meantime, Karina has evacuated because of the physical effects she feels, only coming back here to bring more of her belongings back to the hotel that Jasper County has paid for.
We do have somewhere we can sleep at night. We do not have to worry about breathing this at nighttime. We can go sleep comfortable.
And while Chandler Lloyd says he's helping fight that fire, Karina has little faith in him or the county getting her back home safe and healthy.
The county is responsible for it. Why don't they just make it all landfill?
Where do you think you'll be 6 months from now?
God only knows. I don't know. I'm not no fortune teller.
As for the smoke coming out of that pile, Jasper County Fire tells me they're coming once or twice a day to try to check on those hot spots and put water on any potential flames they see. The smoke, they unfortunately have to leave alone. And that's what worries many of the neighbors. Even if they're gone, they're concerned about what the smoke's already done to them and what might happen to them next.
Owner of the giant debris pile in Jasper County says he's been trying to save his business and protect his neighbor for months, but he's faced roadblocks from county and state officials. For the first time, he sat down with News 3's Andrew Davis to tell his side of this story.
80 different visits. That's how many times DHEC has been to the Jasper pile, according to Able Contracting owner Chandler Lloyd. Tonight, Lloyd is speaking out about what they've done to him, to his business, and how he feels about the neighbors who feel they've been wronged by what's coming out of that giant pile.
Last I heard that you were innocent until proven guilty. They've already hung me.
Chandler Lloyd says he's not getting rich. In fact, he spent $75,000 in the last 60 days on equipment and water to knock down any hot spots, just like they did again this morning. He's already shredded thousands of pounds of debris, but now he can't move any of it because of the DHEC emergency order shutting him down.
DHEC left us alone. We were shredding this material and we were hauling it out. I feel the county and DHEC have been focused on putting us out of business, no matter what. Well, now that they've got us out, they've got a major problem to deal with.
As for the claims that the smoke is making people in the area sick, the EPA report will be out this week. It's a report Lloyd says will vindicate his company.
You sign an agreement with us of your terms, and the biggest thing in our agreement is not to bring any hazardous waste, any household garbage, or any medical waste. Why would I do anything to jeopardize my wife, myself, or any of the people that work here?
And as for the neighbors and businesses who have to live with that smoke, that fire, and that smell,
I hate that it has happened. I'm sorry it has happened. This just shows you that government doesn't do what they're supposed to do all the time.
we should know a lot more about the environmental impact of the pile in the coming days when the EPA comes out with their survey of the air quality and water quality in this area. And as for the future of the pile, it's now in the hands of DHEC. According to Lloyd, we'll have to bring in another company to knock it down, shred it, and get rid of the eyesore and more over here in Jasper County. Andrew Davis, WSAV News 3. The EPA and DHEC have arrived on the scene and are working on the Jasper County trash pile. They've already put 8 different air quality monitors out there, and we now know the results of those tests on the soil and water quality in our area. Late Monday afternoon, the hoses were running the excavator, digging out the side of that 50-foot debris pile. Their goal is to get down into that pile, find the source of the smoke that's been billowing out for weeks. The EPA has now set up shop just outside that immediate area. While tests showed no asbestos coming off the pile, one chemical toxin was detected in the smoke floating through the neighborhoods. It's called acrolein and can be toxic to people who breathe it in or if it gets into their skin.
What we want the community to be aware of is the smoke that's coming off from the pile, because it's not just affecting the residents that have been displaced or the businesses that are closest by. But it can be, it's observed and it affects the community at large. So there are no human contact threats with the surface water that's surrounding the area, but we will take care of looking at all of the surrounding issues.
A new issue for Able Contracting is a pair of lawsuits by neighbors and businesses in the area. Each claims negligence by the site's owner, Chandler Lloyd, and claims lost revenue, personal injury, and decreased property values as a result of the pile. Now, the process to stop the potentially toxic smoke, which is now being paid for through federal money, will take weeks to finish. That means folks who live nearby and are currently evacuated will have even more time before they can return home and know it's safe.
We're going to make sure that the conditions for the fire to restart are no longer there when we're done, and we'll deal with the surface and groundwater and drinking water wells as part of the overall project.
As for the businesses in the area, they don't believe they'll have to be evacuated because the smoke is usually in the late evening or early mornings when folks aren't at work. The plan simply is to get this fire taken care of and then take the pile out. That way everybody can get back to regular life in their homes.
We begin with more bad news for the people living and working near that mountain of debris in Ridgeland.
Tonight, News 3 has learned the Environmental Protection Agency says the trash may be releasing cyanide into the air. That is a potentially lethal gas. That debris pile is located on Shinger Avenue in Ridgeland. A school and several homes and businesses are also in that area.
The EPA now in charge of the Jasper County trash pile site as the federal government pledges they will do what's needed to get rid of it and keep everyone in the area safe.
What I'm being told by both DHEC and EPA is that past tests and current tests don't indicate any threat to the watershed. Now, I'd like to have that verified. I'd like to have further tests done.
State Senator Tom Davis, one of multiple lawmakers who came to the site to see and smell the giant debris pile for themselves. This comes just one day after hazardous levels of hydrogen cyanide were found at the site. The EPA now admits they did tell businesses to evacuate because of that toxic smoke.
Do you believe they are safe where they are if they keep working where they are?
Yes. So as far as we know, from what we get, the data we're getting now, so yes. But if that changes, we're going to have a system where we can communicate that.
Local, state, and federal agencies are now all involved. South Carolina's pledged $1.5 million to help with parts of the cleanup. The federal government will now pick up the rest of the tab, including the temporary relocation of 25 people who used to live nearby.
You still have hope that you're going to come back?
No. I done lost all hope to come back here. I don't care to come back.
Why not?
Why would I? I mean, why would anybody?
Putting out the fires and making sure the air and water are safe will take months. Then some legislators say it's time to ask why all this happened in the first place.
How did this happen and how was it allowed to happen? We have some questions outside of what's going on now that we also have to answer.
They say there is no direct health threat as of now. You still believe there is a health threat to people out there?
Anyone who says that when they hear the word cyanide, I challenge them to bring their children down here and sit them on this site for 2 hours.
This is now a team effort to make sure that pile gets taken care of and the least amount of health concerns come out for anyone in the area. That includes Okatee Elementary, which will open on time as of now on Monday morning.
You can hear the excitement in the air at Okatee Elementary.
I cried bringing this one down the 4th grade hallway because she is going to be in the last hallway.
But it's what you can't see that has school leaders reassuring parents.
First and foremost is making sure that our kids and staff are safe. And so immediately those are the types of things that I want to know about to make sure that we're providing them with a safe environment to teach and learn in.
Frank Rodriguez is the superintendent of Beaufort County Schools. He says officials are monitoring the trash pile closely, where the Environmental Protection Agency found low levels of a potential deadly gas called hydrogen cyanide last week. The pile at the Able contracting site is just minutes away from Okatee Elementary.
Well, we've been in constant contact with DHEC and now with EPA this week, and really checking in with them regularly, monitoring the situation, and they felt all the way along that everything's been good and nothing to worry about.
State officials put sensors on the roof of the school, and the EPA was just here Sunday night inspecting the grounds. They say there's no harm to students and teachers, but school leaders are still taking precautions.
I feel pretty confident that they wouldn't, let us send our kids here if there were going to be an issue. They said that the levels are really low, and I'm just leaving it in the hands of the school.
As the destruction of that giant debris pile in Jasper County continues, there are new concerns about the water being used to fight that fire, what's in it, and where it's going next.
There is no doubt in my mind that this is a pretty significant contamination event that will have repercussions for years in the future.
Tanya Bonatadabis of the Savannah Riverkeepers says she has made multiple visits on the ground and through the air to that site and says there is clearly runoff coming from the firefighters' efforts on that giant pile.
From the Okatee side, that's been the main focus, but it's also getting into the pond behind this man's facility. In fact, he's been using that as his firefighting water for months now and dumping back into it.
The EPA is now in charge of fighting that fire and getting rid of that pile. Trucks are pulling out with debris every few minutes. But the agency also admits there's been runoff into the Okatee River from those firefighting efforts. They're now damming off that runoff, taking out that water, admittedly contaminated with various chemicals, before it gets into any body of water. Bonatabatis hopes it's not too late and the owner hasn't done too much damage.
Failure of an agency to do its job should not negate him having morals. I think the fear is that he's not the only one. I think you can take a pretty quick jaunt around the neighborhood and see there's clear evidence that there's not a huge amount of oversight on the companies that exist in that area, and that needs to be examined thoroughly by the elected officials. They need to figure out what is being allowed to happen in Ridgeland, South Carolina, and the surrounding area. It kind of looks like the Wild Wild West, and now the Wild Wild West is on fire.
Now, Chandler Lloyd, the owner of Able Construction and the owner of that pile, says DHEC came to check on his construction and debris recycling operation 88 times over the past few years and didn't ask him to make any major changes. The Riverkeeper has done their own chemical tests on the water coming from the site. It hopes to have those back later this week.
Congressman Joe Cunningham is the latest lawmaker to visit the giant trash pile in Jasper County.
As News 3's Andrew Davis tells us, he comes with the promise of a cleanup and clean air for those living and working near the site.
The EPA now making plans to end their role in the cleanup of the giant Jasper County trash pile. But officials here say the fight against what's going on is not over.
Seen very little to no active fire, very little smoke.
That's the word from the EPA about the Shinger Road site as they continue to dig out the burned material and put out the fires inside the pile. The federal agency says their part of the job is almost done. Then it'll be up to DHEC to finish that work.
We want that to be seamless. We want the debris to continue to be removed. We want to have the stormwater continue to be monitored. We want testing to be done. And this is an incredibly valuable resource for the people of Beaufort and Jasper counties.
The task, according to Davis and Congressman Joe Cunningham, is to get rid of that pile entirely, then test the air and water around the site to make sure it's clean. The EPA has spent $500,000 so far. DHEC will pay for the rest, with the promise they'll get paid back for their work by the state legislature and eventually the site's owner, Chandler Lloyd, and Able Contracting.
Bad actors need to be held accountable. At the end of the day, we need to get the situation under control, and we need to make sure that people are comfortable breathing the air in this area.
But as DHEC explained why the situation led to a change in the laws to prevent this from happening again.
Have to have permits, they have to have financial assurance, very stringent requirements, much more than what they were required in the past.
Many people who live or work here still wonder what their future holds.
If EPA walks away in the next few days and leaves a bunch of this pile behind, do you feel comfortable being here?
No, it's just going to reignite again. If nobody moves the material and it's left on site, it will spontaneously combust again.
There's no exact timetable on when the EPA may leave, nor when DHEC could be finished with this pile, or when neighbors may be able to come back to their homes here. There are still health questions as well, both now and in the future, for neighbors and businesses. They'd like something done and answered sooner rather than later. Andrew Davis, WSAV News 3.
Dorian brought cleanup to a halt at that giant trash pile in Jasper County, but now work has started again.
As the debris is taken away, we're learning more about the future plans for the site. News 3's Andrew Davis is joining us live from that location with our continuing coverage tonight.
Well, 2 to 3 weeks, that's how much longer the EPA plans to be in control of their portion of the cleanup. They'll then hand it over to DHEC, who will continue the process and hopefully put an end to this giant pile. Then and only then would folks potentially be allowed to come back.
They give indications that it is not dangerous. They give indications that the levels are not harmful to the public.
That's what the sensors at 3 different spots, including Okatee Elementary and Sun City, are now saying about the air quality near the giant debris pile site. This as the EPA continues to move out thousands and thousands of pounds of construction debris, much of it black from the fires that were burning underneath that pile. The EPA will leave in 2 to 3 weeks, leaving behind about 117,000 pounds of material that the South Carolina Department of Environmental Health and Control will then be in charge of. That agency plans to spend about $3.5 million to finish off the job because it's considered a health emergency and threat to the community. A community, though, that's still not back home.
They don't seem to have any concerns based on their testing about the air quality. They continue to have concerns about the volume of truck traffic, but they're hopeful of redirecting that truck traffic in another route.
DHEC will monitor the air and the water for any potential issues or chemicals that came from that site, but will leave the stormwater management to Beaufort and Jasper County.
That was always one of the problems with this site, is that it wasn't a permitted activity. It was sort of exempt back when it was done in seven years ago, and so it didn't have a stormwater management plan, because when you're talking about watersheds in Beaufort County, and in Jasper County for that matter, you're talking about something that's extremely important to the residents here. And I think it's really, critical that we kind of stay on this, trust but verify.
7,000 tons of debris have already been taken from this site. 25,000 cubic feet will remain when DHEC finishes for now. That's when they'll talk to the legislature to try to find out if they have a plan and come up with the rest of the money for the job. In the meantime, truck traffic is the biggest issue around here. Until they can get some of these debris trucks off the road, they don't believe that anybody's going to be able to come home, if at all, anytime soon. Andrew Davis, WSAV News 3.